Book 2, The Lands of California, Stave 5. What should have been done? The true course regarding state lands is that urged upon the legislature by the present Surveyor General in his first annual report, to issue title only to the actual settler who has resided on the land 3 years and who has shown his intention to make it his home by placing upon it at least $500 worth of improvements. Had this course been adopted from the start, California would today have had thousands more people and millions more property. Had it even been adopted when urged by General Bost, over 500,000 acres of land would have been saved to settlers. That is to say, 4,000 families might have found homesteads in California at nominal rates, at rates so much lower than that which they must now pay, that the difference would more than have sufficed for all the expenses of their transportation from the East. To amend our policy regarding sales of state land now is a good deal like locking the stable door after the horse is stolen. Still, it should be done. Our swamp lands are all gone, and the most available of the school lands have also gone. Yet there may be 1,000,000 acres of good land left. These we cannot guard with too jealous care. The possessory law. But the catalogue of what the state of California has done towards the monopolization of her land does not end with a recital of her acts as trustee of the land donated to her by the general government. Besides giving these lands for the most part to monopolists, she has, by her legislation, made possible the monopolization of other vast bodies of the public lands. Under her possessory laws, before alluded to, millions of acres are shut out from settlement, without their holders having the least shadow of title. It is government land, but unsurveyed. The only way of getting title to it is to go upon it and live. But the laws of California say that no one can go upon it until he has a better title than the holder, that of possession. Tracts of from 2 to 10,000 acres thus held are common, and in one case at least, in Lake County, a single firm has 28,000 acres of government land, open by the laws of the United States to preemption settlers, enclosed by a board fence, and held under the state laws. It is these laws that enable the Mexican grant owners to hold all the land they can possibly shadow with their claims, and that offer them a premium to delay the adjustment of their titles, in order that they may continue to hold, and in many cases, to sell, far more than their grants call for. How a large quantity of public land may be freed. A large appropriation for the survey of the public lands in California, managed by a surveyor general who really wished to do his duty, would open to settlers millions of acres from which they are now excluded by railroad reservations or the monopolization of individuals. Suppose our representatives in Congress desire to really benefit their state. In that case, they will neglect the works at Mare Island, the erection of public buildings in San Francisco, and the appropriations for useless fortifications until they can get this. And one of the first acts of the next legislature should be to limit the possessory law to 160 acres, which would be a quick method of breaking up possessory monopolizations. In the meantime, there is a remedy, though a slower and more cumbrous one. At the last session of Congress, an act was passed, introduced by Mr. Sargent, authorizing the credit to settlers, on payments for their lands, of money advanced for surveying them. Here is a means by which, with combined effort, a large amount of public land may be freed. Let a number of settlers, sufficient to bear the expense, go upon one of these large possessory claims. If ejected, let them deposit the money for a survey with the United States Surveyor General, and the moment the lines are run and the plats are filed, they have a sure title to the land. More monopolization threatened food and water. There is little doubt that one of the greatest attempts at monopolization yet made in California would have followed the passage of Sargent's bill for the sale of the Pacific Coast timberlands, which was rushed through the House at the last session, but was passed over by the Senate, and which has been reintroduced. These timberlands are of incalculable value, for from them must come the timber supply, not of the Pacific states alone, but of the whole interior basin, and nearly all the southern coast. The present value of these lands, when they can be got at, may be judged by the fact that there are single trees upon the railroad lands, which yield at present prices over $500 worth of lumber. Under this bill, these lands would have been saleable at $2.50 per acre. The limitation of each purchaser to 640 acres would, of course, amount to nothing, and within a short time after the passage of the bill, the available timberlands would have passed into the hands of a small ring of large capitalists, who would then have put the price of lumber at what figure they pleased. The amount of capital required to do this would be by no means large when compared with the returns, which would be enormous, for though some estimates of the timberlands of California go as high as 30 million acres, the means of transportation as yet make but a small portion of this available, and it would be only necessary to buy the land as it is opened, to virtually control the whole of it. There is, however, a good deal to be said in favor of the sale of these lands. Some legislation is needed, as there is a great deal of land of no use but for its timber, but upon which individuals cannot cut, except as trespassers, while the railroad company in the Sierras, having been given the privilege of taking timber off government land for construction, has a monopoly there, and is clearing government land in preference to its own. If waste could be prevented, it would perhaps be best to leave the timber free to all who chose to cut, on the principle that all the gifts of nature, whenever possible, should be free. This is problematic, perhaps impossible. If so, the plan proposed by Honorable Will S. Green of Colusa seems to be the best of those yet brought forward. That is, to sell the lands only to the builders of sawmills, in amounts proportioned to the capacity of the mill. At all events, almost anything would be better than the creation of such a monstrous monopoly as would at once have sprung up under the Sargent Bill. This monopoly would have taxed the people of California millions annually, and would have raised the price of timber on the whole coast. It is not only the land and the timber, but even the water of California that is threatened with monopoly, as by virtue of laws designed to encourage the construction of mining and irrigation ditches, the mountain streams and natural reservoirs are being made private property, and already we are told that all the water of a large section of the state is the property of a corporation of San Francisco capitalists,